Welcome back to Open Line tonight. We're going beyond the news with my colleague and friend, Chris Conte. Thank you for being here tonight. It's always nice to see you. We only get kind of passive glances in the newsroom.
We were like on TV together, but we're not on TV together.
Yes, but tonight we are.
That's true.
And this is fun. Go ahead and give us a call if you want to talk, 615-737+. Thank you to Ralph who got us started tonight with a great question about what we do, how we do it, why Chris does it, how he does it. It's your chance to call in and ask those questions. I do want to talk about your parents because I do believe that your mother is watching.
I hope she's watching now. I sent her the link.
I have a feeling she's watching. They love following your career.
They do. They've been very supportive, and I think that's really important in news because it's just, there's so many aspects of it. I mean, you know, I've spent more than a few Christmases alone and holidays, and you know, financially too, it's hard in the beginning because you don't make a lot of money.
None.
And so just getting your feet wet and started is hard, and if you don't have family supporting you, I think it's almost near impossible.
And they come to the Emmys.
My parents love coming to the Emmys to support us. They love everyone at Channel 5.
They do. They're so sweet.
They genuinely love you and Vicky and Rory and Bree and everyone else that I work with, which is fun. It's fun.
So if you're watching tonight, Mr. and Mr. Conte,
I hope they were watching.
I'm sure they are watching tonight. You also have a sister.
I do. She's in Colorado. Or no, she's in Arizona now. She's also in grad school. We're both in grad school at the same time. She's getting her master's in social work.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so both of the Conte children are working on their higher education right now.
What qualities do you think you took from your parents?
Patience. Absolutely. I think I got a lot of my mom's a teacher. I think I got a lot of my writing skills from her. I did not get enough of her grammar skills because my grammar, I still have to have people look at my story sometimes. Yes.
This is shocking to me. Okay.
Everyone needs a good copy editor.
No, I totally
and she is mine sometimes.
Well, that's good. And you have to be humble enough to know that.
Yes.
I think that's a key.
Yeah. Kindness. And, you know, and my father is very outgoing. I think that I probably gleaned some of that from him.
Very nice.
And funny. He's funny.
You are funny too. You have a quick wit about you. Can be a little snarky too.
Well, sometimes
all in good
I am
fun.
not afraid to express my thoughts when there is something that I feel like needs to be addressed.
Hashtag truth.
Yes.
Hey, look, we have another caller. We have Ray on the line. Ray, thank you for calling in tonight. What's your question?
Yes, my name is Ray. I live in Rutherford County, even though that's not the important part. I would just like to know if there's ever been a community where your guest has ever been that he thought, wow, I really regret this situation, or have you ever been anywhere where you, if you could have changed the situation, would you have changed it in any way? And I'll hang up and listen to your comment.
Thank you, Ray.
You know, I wouldn't say necessarily community. I mean, there have been situations where maybe I haven't totally felt safe. I mean, I remember there was one time a couple of years ago we had an election worker who got really mad at a poll and he threw his pen or something and he left, and so because this poll worker left, it shut down the polling location, so we left to go find him. So I went and knocked on his door that afternoon, and he opened the door with a gun pointed at me, which happens. But you know, it's situations like that where you step back and say, oh, I'm not, you know.
Right. Is this story going to cost me my life?
Yeah.
Right.
And there have been some other kind of harrowing, you know, situations where you're not really sure what's going to happen. I remember one time in Kentucky, where we were almost up in Kentucky, and there was this guy. He had beheaded his girlfriend.
Oh my!
And they found her head in the backyard, and we went, and this woman, who claimed to be the girl's best friend, was talking to me and Nathan Sharkey, this photographer here, and she was just talking all about her and claiming they were best friends, and we did this whole story about this woman whose name was Militia because she was talking to us about her friend. And then the next day the sheriff sent out a press release about that her name was Melissa and not Militia.
Oh, no.
And so you're just sometimes you just like, man, if I could rewind time, I would.
Yes, absolutely. You know, one thing I'm really thankful for in this career is that we get exposed, and sometimes you can feel very unsafe or very uncertain in certain areas. But you get exposed and pushed out of your comfort zone in life so many times, several times a week usually. And then you learn.
Yeah.
And it opens your eyes to so many different things.
Absolutely.
And ways of life of different people.
Yeah. I mean, you really get to talk to a lot of different people. And the photographer Charlie Woodward always says this, who works here. I mean, we see people at their best days and we see people at their worst days.
Absolutely.
Sometimes in between, but usually it's one of those.
Extreme.
And you know, I will say, I've had times where we've interviewed maybe grieving parents or someone who's lost a child, and weeks, months later, sometimes they'll reach back out and say, you know, it was actually really therapeutic to just talk about what happened. And so I think sometimes that we forget that our biggest gift is that we get to just listen sometimes, even though it may not be the easiest things to hear. Every once in a while it helps, which is nice.
Because it is so very hard to do that knock on the door or send the email or make the phone call and start with, I'm Carrie or I'm Chris with News Channel 5, and it's just like, you've got that lump in your throat. At least I do when I would make those calls. It is hard, and we know what is happening on the other side line. We can imagine. Let's go to Jeff, who is on the line. Jeff, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Jeff.
Ma'am?
Hi, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm okay. I just have a comment. I was just going to say that, Mr. Conte, I think you're very professional and very thorough and I think honest.
Thank you.
Also, Miss Sharp, I'd like to say that I'm probably your biggest fan, and I'm tickled.
I don't know. I would fight you for that.
I'm tickled that you're with us on Channel 5, and that's all I got, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so very much for calling in. You know, it's always nice to hear from people who have something nice to say, who take the time to do that. So thank you.
Sometimes it's about that your tie doesn't look nice, and sometimes it's nice little comments like that. But you know, it is nice when you're working really hard. So I mean, like even the last couple days, we've just been really covering flooding a lot, and it's been raining, and you know, I've spent a lot of hours here, and just one of those is enough.
It's like,
it's a breadcrumb to get you through.
I can make it through the rest of the week. All right, Lucy is on the line. Hi, Lucy.
Hey.
Hi, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
The delay throws me off.
It's okay.
I used to be live. Well, let's see, where do I start? First, I've got a question, but I've got a couple comments I would like to make.
Okay.
Mr. Conte, I think that...
Don't make me blush here.
I know. You know, it was great work on the helicopter this weekend.
Thank you.
But today, I think that Mr. Torres upped you a little bit when he showed the picture of the snake.
Well,
and he was walking in the water. I'm just kidding.
I'll just have to have a little chat with him.
All that work, and you get that. But you said that your mother is listening.
I
would like to say
forgive me for looking at my phone. Let me see if she is. I think she is, yes.
Okay. I would like to say this to you, but I want your mother to hear this. I have called you in the past and asked you to do a story on an older man that was stomped to death, I think up in Clarksville. He worked at a laundromat, to find out if he was a veteran. Because if he was a Vietnam-era veteran and he had gone to war and he'd come back home and he died that way.
I remember this, yes.
It bothered me. But you sat there that afternoon on the phone and you listened to me. It wasn't a big piece in the news that night, but you mentioned it and you brought some attention to it, and that made me feel good that you had listened to me. But the other thing is, when you covered the Vanderbilt rape trial and the Holly Bobo trial, the tone in your voice, the care that you took was not just making this a matter-of-fact story when it was such two horrendous crimes that had occurred against women, and just, you know, innocent for all what we know, but just the way you handled that made me feel comfortable that you know how to put yourself in the right place as a broadcaster and not just make that sound like somebody's taking their socks off and putting them back on. And I appreciate that about you.
Well, thank you, Lucy.
Here's my question. Tell your mother I said thank you. But here's my question. My question is, there was a guy, I don't know what your ethnic background is, but there was a guy out in Hollywood and he was a Sicilian immigrant, and he was a big Hollywood tailor. He came over after his family had came over, tried to stay in Hollywood for a while, couldn't stand it, and left 20 years later, I think in the 1930s, and went back to Sicily. By any chance, are you related to that Conte? And I'll hang up.
You know, maybe. My family's all Italian, and they're from outside of Florence, and so there's a possibility.
There is a possibility. And you know what, Lucy brings up a great thing. You have, because of your name, you've been confused lately with different
Phil Bredeson's son,
yes.
the football player, Chris Conte.
Let's talk about the football player issue. What happened?
Chris Conte. That started a couple years ago. People thought that I was, on Twitter, thought that I was him, and just came after me. He was not doing well. He had a couple rough games. And I mean, they were just saying some mean things on Twitter. And so we did a story about it.
Okay.
And we said, we were like, here's what people are saying, and we, shed some light on it. And all the stations in Chicago picked it up, and the newspapers, and we were on CNN, and it was just this big thing about mistaken identity. It was interesting.
But then it happened again this year.
Yeah, it did happen again this year because he had another misplay, and it was not good. I forgot. It's again things you forget about. That. I mean, for weeks, that Holly Bovo trial was, that was my life, was living down there in that cabin and covering that trial. And same thing with the Vanderbilt rape trial. I mean, that was, 4 different times that we were there covering that for weeks. And I mean, to Lucy's point, I know that we're supposed to be objective when we cover things, but hearing the things that you hear, it's hard for it to not impact you.
Sure.
And so, even when I'm talking about these cases, you try to have some level of compassion when you're speaking.
And I think you have to transfer the weight of what you're hearing to make the viewer also understand the weight of it.
Well, and there were times when there would be some pretty graphic things said in court, and and I would just say, listen, if you have little kids around the TV right now, might be a good idea to just turn down the volume for a second, just while we talk about this, and then come back into it.
Right.
But that's just the nature of what's there. I still have my notes from the Holly Bobo trial because I think it would make an interesting book. You know what has always stood out to me most about that?
Okay, what? When
I think back about it, that bothers me the most still, is there were so many people along the way who, Vanderbilt rape trial, sorry, I got them confused, who saw this poor unconscious girl and just didn't say anything. And just let her be carried through that dormitory and carried around. And there were kids who were asked, did you tell the police? No. Did you tell the dorm RA? No. Did you tell your friends? No.
There were so many people who could have stopped it.
Who could have said something and didn't. And to me, that was always, the crime itself was just horrific. But that always just stood out to me as like, man, just no one could even just stand up from a human standpoint and say, this is wrong, we need to tell someone. And
we're talking about people, anybody can do the right thing, anybody. But you're talking about kids who have made it into Vanderbilt. They know right from wrong, they should. They've got to be some sort of intelligent to make it into the school, and they could have just picked up a phone. They could have just knocked on a door. They could have done anything. Yeah. Okay, not to end on a down note here, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we would love to take more of your phone calls. We have another half hour to go. We'll get those lined up in the break, 615-737+. Stay with us.